America's best days are yet to come. That's because conservatives like you know and live the values our great country was built on. The Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard in the D.C. swamp each day, shining the light on a bright future. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values and won't give up the fight because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
I told you they were going to do this. I told you yesterday they were going to do this. They're going after Nick Shirley, the independent journalist, 23-year-old YouTuber, because he made them all look bad. And so they're attacking him. I told you this was going to happen. I'll lay it out there for you. Yeah, we've even got one Politico legal columnist guy who's in his own way throwing veiled threats of violence against this guy, basically predicting that Nick Shirley is going to get shot when he goes knocking on doors in the Somali community in Minneapolis. Yeah, a Politico guy, the legal analyst, or as the great one Mark Levin would call him, an analyst. Which is one of the things I love about Mark Levin. One of the many things added to the list. It's Larry O'Connor sitting in for Mark Levin on this, the last Tuesday of 2025. It's the final, might be the final live show of 2025. At least my final slot sitting in for Mark here on this sort of valedictory episode of the Mark Levin Show as we look back on 2025 and also look forward to 2026. I'm going to be taking a lot of your calls at 877-381-3811. I want to know from you what you hope to achieve this year, what you hope the government and the Trump administration will achieve this year, what you want them to do. What are your New Year's resolutions for Donald Trump? We're also going to take a look ahead to not just the midterm elections, but yes, it's already time to talk about the 2028 presidential elections. Sure, we'll talk about that. Lord knows the Democrats are jockeying and vying for position right now, so Republicans better be focusing on that as well. Don't want to get caught on your heels. So we'll get into all of that and some more astounding immigration numbers to add to what we discussed yesterday. And we're finally getting the truth about that transgender violent mass murderer in Tennessee. We were told by the FBI, Christopher Wray, the Justice Department, all these other experts, we may never know the motive. They knew the motive. They didn't want to tell you the motive because it was politically inconvenient. We're going to get into all of that and a whole lot more over the course of the next 3 hours here on the great one, the Mark Levin Show. A little bit about myself. I'm the morning radio host in Washington, D.C. You may have heard of it. It's the District of Columbia. It's not a state. Never will be. Never was supposed to be. But it's a fine town, and it's also the seat of power here in the United States of America and really the Western world, and that's all that matters on the planet. So really it's the seat of power on Earth, the most powerful city on the planet. And I get to wake people up every morning on the mighty WMAL talk radio station that Mark Levin also calls home, by the way. I also do a daily noontime live stream video podcast for the incredible Town Hall Media, townhall.com. As well as Red State, Hot Air, PJ Media, Twitchy, Bearing Arms, all the websites you love. That's Town Hall, and I'm proud to be a part of that family. Where to begin? Oh, where to begin? I guess we should pick up where we left off yesterday with Nick Shirley, this independent journalist who's been covering the scandal out of Minneapolis. And understand something, he's only covering it because the mainstream media refuses to. Oh, they'll tell you that the New York Times did an article about it, and they did. New York Times did an article about 4 weeks about it, and that was it. You know how the media works. You know, when there's one article in the New York Times, there's usually about 12 follow-ups. If it's highlighting a scandal that involves conservatives or Republicans or Trump or MAGA or whatever. And not only that, you see wall-to-wall coverage on the cable and broadcast networks for weeks when it's a scandal involving a conservative or a Republican or a MAGA or Trump or whatever. But here the New York Times did their one story, and what more do you want? Hey, we covered that. It's been said that the way the media covers a story when it's not to their liking, makes them look bad, or makes their pals in the Democrat Party look bad, they cover it up with a pillow. That's how they cover a story. They cover a story with a pillow until it can't breathe anymore. and they smother it to death. Just look at the Hunter Biden laptop story. But I told you yesterday, after being within the inner circle of Andrew Breitbart's new media revolution that started in 2009 and stretched until the day of his death on March 1st, 2012, I was one of his editors for his original websites and then retained that role when those websites all became what you know now as Breitbart News. And I stayed for about almost a year after Andrew's death. A guy named Steve Bannon took over. Didn't work out. Anyway, I moved on. Lord knows he moved on, and I still have great friends over there at Breitbart. But Andrew envisioned citizen journalists just like Nick Shirley. Andrew envisioned people like James O'Keefe, who brought his story and multiple stories to Andrew Breitbart, and Andrew Breitbart platformed them, amplified them, and, well, created this new genre of citizen journalism. When I saw Nick Shirley's story, knowing that he was so young and has been able to do a really good job with the tools at his disposal, stuff that you can get. I used to say at a Radio Shack, but we don't have those anymore, but you can get them at a Guitar Center or on Amazon, an iPhone and a couple of Rode infrared microphones or Bluetooth microphones in your set. That's what Nick Shirley does. And when I saw this video go out, I thought that's what Andrew wanted. This was his vision. This what they wanted. And just like James O'Keefe before him and Hannah Giles and Patrick Koryelski and all the other citizen journalists that broke stories for Andrew back in the day, 15 years ago, I knew that they were going to try to destroy Nick Shirley. I said as much on the show yesterday and on my own social media. Say a prayer for Mr. Shirley because they're going to start lying about him. They're going to start lying about him, and those lies will be repeated. And think about it. When the mainstream media, when the corporate legacy media, who got caught with their pants down and looked like incompetent fools because a 23-year-old was able to do something that they certainly could have done, but they chose not to because of their ideological bias, instead of saying, oh, gosh, that's a great story, we should probably go after it too, instead, their response was, let's destroy that kid. Here's the CNN article. I don't know if CNN has any articles about the fraud, the $9 billion of fraud in Minneapolis right now. And by the way, as I predicted yesterday, we're learning about it in New York, upwards to $50 billion in California, state after state after state, run by Democrats, all caught up in the same kind of fraud with the same kind of programs. Boy, what a coincidence. But does CNN send their well-budgeted investigative journalists after that story? No. They try to destroy the kid with an iPhone and a Bluetooth microphone. Headline, who is Nick Shirley? The 23-year-old MAGA journalist whose Minnesota fraud story went viral. Why call him a MAGA journalist? Why do you have to call him a MAGA journalist? What does that even mean, MAGA journalist? I've seen some of the stories on his YouTube channel. I wouldn't call them MAGA. And by the way, is this a MAGA story, CNN? Showing that there's fraud in Medicare and child daycare services that are federally funded? And much of it is centered in the Somali community. Is that a MAGA story? So only MAGA is concerned about that? Boy, that's an admission, isn't it? Democrats don't care about fraud, apparently. People who don't support Donald Trump don't care about rampant fraud and waste of billions of dollars of tax money that could have, stayed in your own pocket, or, if you insist, could have been spent on actual concerns and actual needs of the American people. That's something only Trump cares about. You know what? You're right. That is something only MAGA cares about. You might want to think on that, CNN. You might want to think, maybe that's worth a story. Why is it Trump and MAGA are the only ones that care about fraud in our federal government and the benefits that are being shelled out in the hundreds of billions? Or better yet, why don't Democrats care? Okay, so that's the headline. Let's read a little bit. Shirley's experience could only happen in today's media and political environment where seemingly anyone can go viral, helped along by social media gatekeepers like Musk. Musk is not the gatekeeper. Musk neutered the gatekeepers. Musk fired the gatekeepers. Musk took down the gatekeepers. Oh, only a CNN journalist could look at what's going on the X platform, freedom of ideas, freedom of the exchange of ideas and information. Only they can look at that and call the owner of the platform a gatekeeper. Oh, it's delightful. Shirley and others like him present themselves as the future of journalism. They often claim the lack of traditional editing, fact checks, and guardrails makes them more trustworthy. Yeah, I wish we had the same kind of traditional editing, fact checks, and guardrails that CNN boasts about. Yeah, because they're way more trustworthy over at CNN with their traditional editing, fact checks, and guardrails. That traditional editing, fact checks, and guardrails somehow brought us the Russian collusion hoax. The traditional editing and the fact checks and guardrails at CNN somehow missed the Hunter Biden laptop story, or the true origins of the COVID virus, or the reality behind all of the COVID provisions that were being jammed down our throats, or the truth about the efficacy of the COVID vaccine, which ain't really a vaccine. Oh, where would we be without CNN's traditional editing, fact checks, and guardrails? You know, the traditional editing, fact checks, and guardrails that completely missed the story of Joe Biden's mental, physical, and cognitive decline. They just missed it. My goodness, it's a good thing we at CNN have traditional editing, fact checks, and guardrails so we can be so trustworthy. That way, a dangerously inconclusive and unreliable story like Joe Biden losing his mind before our very eyes would maybe leak out accidentally. CNN continues their expose on Nick Shirley, literally attacking the messenger, which, by the way, is nothing. Wait till you hear what this politico-legal analyst, Josh Gerstein, said. He is, de facto shooting the messenger, or calling for the shooting of the messenger. We'll get to his violent rhetoric in a second. Meanwhile, the audience for mainstream media has been falling for years, and public trust in traditional journalists is at historic lows, amplified by political figures who make denigrating journalists part of their brand. Yeah, gosh, is that why the audience for mainstream media has been falling for years? Is it? Again, if you're CNN and you're running a business, a multi-million dollar business, and you admit that your audience is falling and that public trust in your product is at historic lows, maybe you should pause for a minute. Anyone else in business, they do that. They take corrective actions and preventative actions. They evaluate their work product, figure out why the customer isn't buying it anymore. And then they make modifications to their product. That's how free markets work. That's how business works. That's how quality systems are activated, CNN. But no, it's better to write this article going after the guy who's succeeding while admitting that you're a failure, and then blame it on politicians. More on CNN going after the messenger, attacking Nick Shirley, the MAGA journalist. And as promised, you'll hear what the politico-legal analyst said, Josh Gerstein, basically calling for gun violence against Nick. That's coming up in a moment. I'm Larry O'Connor. This right here, it's the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. For decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin, and we're, sadly, confirming what I predicted yesterday. I said, say a prayer for Nick Shirley, because they're going to go after him. They're going to attack him. I just read you the CNN article. CNN decides that the real story here is a MAGA journalist, because you have to be a MAGA journalist to care about billions of dollars of government fraud, which is, of course, an admission that non-MAGA journalists really don't care about it. Not really a story. But you go after him, and you go after the phenomenon of citizen journalism and the free platforms that we have to be able to make a story go wide and go long. By the way, this actually all started with the Monica Lewinsky story on the Drudge Report back in the 90s. I love that Elon Musk is now the gatekeeper. The Monica Lewinsky story was squashed by the editors of Newsweek. Mike Isikoff, the reporter, I believe, leaked it to Matt Drudge. Matt Drudge ran with it, and it became a sensation. But if the gatekeepers at Newsweek, Time, CNN, Washington Post, New York Times, all the broadcast outlets, if they had their way, you would have never heard that story. Why? Well, because it involved Bill Clinton. So then for CNN to turn around and say, yeah, this is really something. It's been going on for 30 years because you refuse to be honest and actually do reporting. They're angry that Nick Shirley is knocking on doors. What do you think Mike Wallace did for decades at 60 Minutes? But here's the pièce de résistance. Josh Gerstein, he calls himself the legal analyst over at Politico. He commented on the Nick Shirley story and said, and I'm quoting him now, at some point, the amateur effort to knock on doors of home daycares intersects with robust stand-your-ground laws. That would be Josh Gerstein, the legal expert and legal columnist at Politico, basically saying this guy's going to get shot. And, oh, by the way, stand-your-ground laws will protect whoever shoots him. So you're within your rights to go ahead and shoot this kid when he shows up on your front door with a camera. Beyond despicable. Amateur effort to knock on doors. You know why there's an amateur effort to knock on doors, Josh? Because the pros with their journalism degrees and their big paychecks from the big corporations didn't show up to knock on those doors. That's why we've got an amateur effort. Also, by the way, I don't think he really knows how stand-your-ground laws work. Let me just say, don't take Josh Gerstein, the legal analyst, columnist, reporter at Politico's advice on when you can exercise your Second Amendment right to defend yourself at your homestead, because he doesn't quite understand about stand-your-ground laws. I assure you that you can't shoot somebody standing on your doorstep knocking on your door. But finally, the overall pathetic nature of the entire mainstream media, corporate legacy media's response to this story, going after the journalist, citizen, the kid with the camera, the platforms that are now free and open so that anybody can put their content out there and anybody can see it without gatekeepers. The fact that they find that to be the objectionable scandal in all of this, while the Democrats in Minnesota are empowering billions of dollars of fraud and promising for more, that tells you everything you need to know about these hacks. Larry O'Connor, it's the Mark Levin Show.
We're coming upon the 250th birthday of the United States, and it has me thinking, what will America look like 250 years from now? My friends at the Heritage Foundation want to know what you think. What policies should America prioritize? What principles should carry us into the decades ahead? As America enters a new golden age, Heritage recognizes that this is the time to take stock and to be intentional about how we shape the future of America. And they can't do it without your input. So please go to heritage.org/LEVIN and let them know what you think is important. Without patriots like you stepping up and speaking up for what you believe in, America as we know it can't survive for another 250 years. Please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Take the survey on America's future. This survey takes less than 10 minutes to complete, but it is critical for making sure that the America we pass on to future generations is an America we're proud of. Go to heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/Levin. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
America's most powerful conservative voice. The Mark Levin Show. Dial in now. 877-381-3811.
It's amazing to see Josh Gerstein. I want to get his title right because I've been mangling it here. Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin, and I told you yesterday they were going to attack Nick Shirley, but I didn't expect veiled threats of gun violence against him. I did not expect it. I did not expect the senior legal affairs reporter for Politico to openly suggest that the next Somali behind a door of a daycare facility might just want to shoot the next guy who knocks and asks for an interview. Did not have that on my bingo card. I wonder, is it too late to get Josh Gerstein, the senior legal affairs reporter of Politico, is it too late to get him on any of the end-of-year horrible lists? I know our buddies at Media Research Center Newsbusters, they always come out with the lists of the most outrageous, despicable, disgusting, outrageous, biased, defamatory lies that the corporate legacy media comes out with. And I'm assuming they put all their lists to bed at this point. But boy, Josh Gerstein just gets in under the wire. Gerstein by a nose. He says at some point the amateur effort to knock on doors of home daycares intersects with robust stand your ground laws. All right, so now again, I'm no senior legal affairs reporter, and I certainly don't work at Politico. But knocking on the door of a public business, which, by the way, that's the whole point. These are supposed to be public businesses funded by taxpayers. Open for business, even though no one's actually using these services that you're spending $2 million a year to subsidize. But knocking on the door of a public business will not legally stand up in court as a justifiable threat for you to pull out your legally obtained and owned and bared firearm and start shooting. But trust me, don't take the Josh Gerstein defense here. Don't start shooting people up on the front door of your business because you don't want to be seen on their cameras, or you don't want to submit to an interview because you may be guilty of tax fraud or some other kind of corruption. Don't shoot that person and then say, but Josh Gerstein, the senior legal affairs reporter at Politico, said it was okay. At some point, the amateur effort to knock on doors of home daycares intersects with robust stand-your-ground laws. Yeah, listen, stand-your-ground laws. By the way, I don't think Minnesota has a stand-your-ground law. But even if they did, it would not protect a business owner shooting someone knocking on the door of your public business during hours of operation. Which, by the way, is all completely beside the point anyway, because the journalist is not the story. The fact that he's going and knocking on doors is not the story. Are we to believe that all of the journalism degrees, well-paid, slap each other on the back while wearing a tuxedo 8 times a year, handing each other plexiglass trophies because you love giving awards to each other kind of journalists in Washington, D.C., would love to do the kind of work that Nick Shirley's doing in Minnesota, and the only thing keeping them from doing it is the fact that they think some crazy wacko with a gun might shoot them on the front door of the business that they're trying to investigate. Is that what we're supposed to believe? Josh, senior legal affairs reporter. By the way, before he was the senior legal affairs reporter from Politico, he was the ABC White House correspondent, the ABC China correspondent. He worked for CNN and the New York Sun. I know all of these things because Josh Gerstein is very proud of his resume. He puts it right there in his X profile, where he made this comment, and it's still there, shockingly. It truly is shocking. I cannot believe he has deleted it at this point. It's impossible to read this and not think that Josh Gerstein, the senior legal affairs reporter at Politico, but honestly speaking on behalf of most journalists in Washington, it's hard not to reach the conclusion that he thinks, yeah, Nick Shirley probably should get shot for doing this. Or if he does get shot, well, you know, it's kind of the Charlie Kirk thing. He had it coming. Oh, it's sad and it's tragic and, you know, a terrible, terrible. We condemn all violence in this country, all of it, of course. But you can understand why he got shot. That's Josh Gerstein. Has Politico said anything about this yet? I don't think they have. So that's what we're dealing with here. And meanwhile, we've got another day where the corporate media has basically, instead of ignored this story, I shouldn't say they ignored it, they talked about it. But they talked about you, saying that there's something wrong with you for caring about this story. There's something wrong with you for noticing. You're an extremist. Of course you're racist. And ultimately, you don't want to help children. When in reality, actually, you'd love to help children. You think the best way to help children is to not steal taxpayers' money and give them to crooks under the guise of helping children. 877-381-3811. As our program unfolds, I'd love to hear from you about what you're hoping from this next year of the Trump term. It's been a pretty good year, and if you want to celebrate any of the achievements, sure, we did that a bit yesterday, but how about me make some resolutions? What's your New Year's resolution for Donald Trump? What's your New Year's resolution for Congress, for that matter? 877-381-3811. Yesterday, at the end of the day, we had a stunning court decision. It's stunning because it's reasonable, it makes sense, it's constitutional, and it favors President Trump. That's why it's stunning. Let's start at the beginning. And as I tell you about this court decision and how good it is, I want you to sort of listen to what I'm telling you as I break it down, and maybe you'll see sort of the hidden underlying story here that many people in the corporate media are missing. See, many months ago, the Trump administration started seeking welfare records for immigration enforcement purposes. They wanted states to hand over their welfare documentation, which, by the way, is completely within the federal government's rights to ask for this information because these programs are all funded by federal tax dollars, right? And so they wanted all of the information and data of individuals in various states that had been receiving welfare benefits, either SNAP or Obamacare subsidies or what have you. There are a lot of welfare benefits out there. You're paying for them. And when the states discovered that the entity in the federal government requesting this documentation for welfare benefits was the Department of Homeland Security and ICE, they said no. And 21 states, all Democrat-run states, sued the Trump administration to keep from having to hand over welfare documentation as it relates to an investigation into illegal immigration. You see, these are federal programs, but the states are in charge of enrolling people in these programs. And so when the federal government asked for them, they have every right to get them. The states said, nope, not if you're going to use them for an immigration investigation. Now, I think you're already picking up on the hidden story here, the underlying story, the little Easter egg, the little magic eye 3D image that you can pick up on this story that nobody else is really talking about. Oh, you've seen reports You've seen reports about the court decision and about the lawsuit, but nobody's acknowledging the elephant in the room. Politico's headline, Trump administration can share immigrants' Medicaid data with ICE, judge rules. It's not exactly the totality of the decision. Federal judge ruled Monday that the Trump administration can resume sharing location data about undocumented immigrants receiving public health insurance benefits with Immigrations and Customs Enforcement starting next month. You see it, right? I'm not the only one who sees this, right? U.S. District Judge Vince Chabria, and by the way, we should celebrate this guy because, this is a unicorn moment here. We got a judge actually following the law, following the Constitution. U.S. District Judge Vince Chabria's ruling is a victory for President Trump's mass deportation agenda, as it allows ICE to use Medicaid data in deportation cases beginning January 6th. The agency had been blocked from doing so for months amid a legal challenge from blue states. The sharing of such information is clearly authorized by law, and the agencies have adequately explained their decision, Chabria wrote in a 7-page order. The decision marks a significant setback for California Attorney General Rob Bonta and 21 of his Democrat counterparts who sued in July to prevent the Trump administration from using Medicaid data obtained from the Department of Health and Human Services to target immigrants. Well, of course, it's not to target immigrants, is it? It's to discover people in the country illegally who are breaking the law. Undocumented immigrants are not eligible to enroll in federal Medicaid programs. The article continues. But California and other blue states, Illinois, Colorado, New York, Washington, Oregon, Minnesota, as well as Washington, D.C., allow some people to receive state-funded benefits through their Medicaid implementation programs, regardless of immigration status. You have to have a degree from a journalism school. Actually, the degree from the journalism school helps, but ideally, you got to have an advanced degree from an Ivy League school to write an asinine statement like that. To begin the sentence with, undocumented immigrants are not eligible to enroll in federal Medicaid programs. Well, wait, just stop right there. What was this fight about? So if you're a blue state, if you're any state for that matter, and you're concerned about protecting illegal immigrants from being deported, and the federal government and ICE and DHS says, yeah, give us all the records on anyone receiving welfare benefits in your state. We're going to use it for immigration purposes. If you're one of those states, aren't you saying, well, absolutely. Here, we'll hand deliver all the documents to you. Go ahead and waste your time because you're not going to find anything there because illegal immigrants aren't receiving any benefits. Yeah. See, there's the Easter egg. There's the secret part of the story that no one seems to want to acknowledge. The New York Times wrote about the decision, but won't actually state the obvious, which is this is a problem because illegal immigrants are getting all of these benefits that they're not supposed to be getting. Why else would these states be blocking it? Sure, absolutely. You can have all the SNAP benefit documentation we've got because illegal immigrants aren't getting those benefits. George Stephanopoulos told me so. You want to see who's getting free health care in my state? Well, of course, especially the ones that are connected to the Obamacare, Affordable Care Act. Sure. Go ahead and take all the documentation you want because I know for certain that federal law prohibits illegal immigrants from getting any of those benefits. So anyone who's on these files, clearly they're here legally. That's not what they said. No, they sued. They sued to try to prevent this information from getting out. Why would they do that? This is the greatest lie of the year. And, of course, Jake Tapper repeated endlessly, along with all his pals on his network. Well, I don't know why you're saying that illegal immigrants, well, I don't know why you say Democrats want illegal immigrants to get the Affordable Care Act and Obamacare. That's against the law. Meanwhile, the states are suing Trump from getting the documentation that shows who's getting all of these benefits for immigration purposes. A stunning decision, and even more stunning that it gives it gives truth to the biggest lie of the year. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Larry O'Connor in for the great one. Yes, great. Mark Levin. Quick reaction to this, and then we're going to move on to your predictions or resolutions for President Trump in 2026. Let's start, though, with George. He's on line 1, and he's in Boston, Massachusetts. Hey, George, thanks for calling. I'm Larry. Oh, look at that. We lost him immediately. Boy, we're having some fun with the phones tonight, aren't we? All right, I'll tell you what. Let's kick things off for our predictions and our resolutions with Robert in Santa Clara, California. All right, Robert, what's your resolution for President Trump next year? No? Do we have him? Robert, go ahead, Robert.
Fires, we don't have water for agriculture. You got me? You can hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. This guy Newsom, he's not he's dismantled California already. He's blown up 4 dams up north. That means we can't fight fires or be the salad bowl of the nation like we used to be. We also have 3 oil refineries that are leaving. Yep. This is going to be a crisis, and this guy needs to get out. Trump needs to go get him.
All right, so listen, I hear you. And I mean, he's only got, 11 more months anyway as governor, and then there's going to be an election. But let me ask you something, because I lived in California most of my adult life. I moved to D.C. about 15 years ago. But I went to high school there. I started my family there. What do you say to people all around the country who hear you in California and say, dude, I hear you, it's terrible, it's awful, but you all voted for this. I know you didn't, but you're overwhelmed by voters who want this. They got the government they voted for. Why should Trump come to the rescue or any other state come to the rescue until California fixes its own problem?
It'll take too long. There's too much of a body count. California, listen, if you get the CPI down by getting rid of cap and trade and the gas taxes and remove it or replace it with an offset sales tax of 0.2%, you fund your highway budget. All this trauma for the highway budget and all this dismantling of the state's infrastructure and letting it rot in the name of what? Climate change. Is it climate change or is it dam removal, Gavin?
But dude, the people in your state want that. That they get a chance every 4 years, and they keep doubling down. Every single policy that you just laid out there that's a disaster for your state was overwhelmingly voted for by Californians.
It's timely propaganda. When Trump supposedly removed some families, Gavin was the savior. That propaganda is very effective with people who are on the fence and don't think critically and are easily malleable.
I hear you, brother, and my heart goes out to you, and I love California, and I've got great friends who live in California. I still have family that lives in California, and my heart does go out to them. But I got to tell you, until Californians are interested in fixing California, it's never going to get fixed. That's what's needed here, and I'm praying for you, and we're here to help, but this change has got to come from within the Golden State. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
My name is Larry O'Connor. I'm sitting in for Mark Levin here. It's the 30th day of December. As we close out 2025, ring in 2026, we've done a lot over the last couple of days looking back in the rearview mirror of what a year it was. I've got a little bit more on the immigration numbers. We celebrated it last night. You cannot say it enough what a miracle it is. And it isn't a miracle. It's just good governance. It's actually following the law, enforcing the law. You know, it's amazing what you can get done when you actually have a mandate from the American people and you have the will to do it. And, by the way, you recognize that it's the right thing to do. It's just that simple. You shut down the border so we don't have any more illegal crossings. That also shuts down the drugs coming across the border in a significant way, and we've got some great numbers showing the results of that. Drug overdoses absolutely plummeting right now. Huge benefit this year from shutting down the drugs coming across the border. It's not nearly as ubiquitous as it was. And then add to that the deportation of people who are in the country illegally because, well, they've broken the law. 70% of the people who have been deported by DHS were criminals with a criminal record and criminal convictions. 70%. Now, you may look at that and say, oh, my gosh, that's terrible. They deported 30% who hadn't broken the law. Well, yeah, I'll get to that in a second. 2.5 million deported altogether. 1.9 million self-deported. Those are people who recognize they had broken the law, recognize that it's not going to go well for them, took the offer from the Department of Homeland Security, went home, and now if their nose is clean and they actually do want to come to this country legally in the right way, they have a chance to do that. So that's incredible right there. Add to that the 600,000 who have been apprehended and deported through the system. Of those 600,000, 70% have criminal convictions or pending criminal charges just here in the United States, let alone criminal convictions in other countries. By the way, that's enough to be deported. Having a conviction in another country, that's enough. But then that other 30%, you're wringing your hands about it. I understand. You've been well trained by academia and late-night talk shows and certainly by the mainstream corporate legacy media. That's terrible. 30% of the people deported and sent back home didn't break the law. Well, hold on there. First of all, of course they broke the law. They broke the law by crossing our border illegally in the first place. And I know you're going to hear from really, really smart academics on television or in the halls of Congress that say, well, actually, that's just a civil offense. That's a lie. That's a lie. There are certain types of violations of our immigration code which would be considered a civil violation. That doesn't mean that there's not a penalty for it, and it doesn't mean you don't face deportation, depending on the circumstance. But if you're here on a student visa, let's say, and your visa expires and you stay in the country, you could probably make an argument that that's a civil offense. If you're here on a business visa or a tourist visa and the same thing happens, sure. Many of those cases are, in fact, civil offenses, but you've got to assume that you didn't break any other laws. So, for instance, if you came here on a commercial visa or a business visa to do business and work here in the country and that visa expires, if you're still working, well, that's a felony. So sure, being in the country, theoretically, is a civil offense. But if you just stay here and you don't do anything and you don't take advantage of any government benefits, if you don't actually work or make any money and you're just sort of sitting there like a lump, sure, okay, civil offense. But most of the people who stay here past the time that their visa expired, they've got a job. They're working. They're continuing to function and utilize what our government and our country and our citizens have provided for people who are here legally. They're breaking the law each and every time they do that. That goes well beyond the civil offense of being in the country illegally. But let's just cut to the freaking chase here, because when we talk about illegal immigration and we talk about the millions and millions and millions of people who came into this country under Joe Biden just in the last 4 years, not even talking about the people that came under Obama and under Clinton and under Bush, we know what we're talking about. We're talking about the millions of people to the tune of tens and 20,000 a day, a couple 250,000 a month that crossed our southern border. They crossed our border illegally and they stayed illegally. And that, my friends, is not a civil offense. That is a criminal offense. So when your liberal sister-in-law at your New Year's Eve party this weekend tries to play that game, just say, you, with all due respect, don't know what the hell you're talking about. Crossing our border illegally and staying here under false pretenses is a crime. It is a criminal act, not a civil offense, a criminal act. They are splitting hairs and parsing, and they're playing word games when they say, well, being an illegal immigrant is just a civil offense. Nope, that's only that very small handful of people who I just described that overstay a visa, et cetera, et cetera. When you cross our border illegally, you do one of two things. You run from the Border Patrol and you hide and you stay here that you're a criminal. Or you get encountered by Border Patrol, and the only way you're allowed to stay here is if you lie and say that you're seeking asylum. But that's a lie, and you know it's a lie. Because eventually, when you have your hearing, in 8 years, the judge will say, no, you're not eligible for asylum. Go home. And at that point, you'll have Jake Tapper saying, but they've been here for 8 years, and they're contributing members of the society. Well, they lied. They lied when they claimed asylum. They never had the right to be here. Criminal offense. Get out. So 70% of those who have been arrested and deported are, in fact, criminals, as promised. The other 30%, what were they doing? Okay, well, if they don't fall under the category I just gave you, they're doing something else. You see, ICE is not going out randomly and stopping people on the streets or in a Home Depot parking lot or wherever, Disneyland, and saying, hey, I don't like the way you look. Show me your papers. And if you don't have any, I'm sending you to El Salvador. That's not what's going on here. Department of Homeland Security and ICE, along with their coordination with local law enforcement officials when the locality is cooperating, they have tips on criminals. People who are A, in the country illegally, and B, either have a criminal record here in this country, have a criminal record in their home country, or they're suspected of breaking the law in this country. ICE goes out. They find them. They go to where they are, whether it's in a parking lot at Home Depot or a Lowe's, or whether it's in some home that's got 8 families living in it in South Central LA, or wherever it is, working at some agricultural concern in the South Central Valley of California. They go where they know there are criminals who are wanted for crimes. What happens when law enforcement goes into a big room where there is a suspected criminal in that room? What happens? Do they tell everybody, hey, you can all go about your business, do whatever you want. We're only looking for this one guy, okay? No, that's not what they do. They go into the room, and let's say there's 20 people in there, and they say, everybody, hands up behind your head. Because you know one of those people is a criminal. Everybody, down on your knees, hands above your head. And one by one, they check each person's ID. Now, if these statistics bear out of those 20 people, 14 of them were criminals. So what about the other 6? What about that 30%? What about the other 6? Well, you were hanging out with a criminal. In fact, you were hanging out with a couple of criminals, pal. And I'm sorry, but that's what happens. What? So when law enforcement comes into a house because they're trying to find a bad guy, and as they're searching the other people who are in the room, they find that each of them have, they're carrying illegal weapons, or they've got, drugs, or they've got other contraband or other evidence in their pockets of committing a crime. Well, they're not going to get arrested for that? Oh, well, yeah, you're carrying an illegal weapon here. But you know what? We were only looking for these guys over here. The 70%, that's the only ones we were looking for. For the rest of you guys, even though there's evidence right there in your pocket of a crime, you can go. Is that how it works? That is not how it works. So that 30% that also got deported, well, they were here illegally. They might not have been targeted. They may not have been on the list of people who had criminal records, but they violated one law. They were in our country illegally. They got caught up in the raid. They were hanging out with criminals. They got arrested. They got deported. Boo-hoo. At this point, I don't know what more to say to illegal immigrants in this country, especially those people who just entered the country in the last 6-7 years. But honestly, anybody. in this country illegally. I don't know what more to say to you at this point. The Department of Homeland Security, the United States government right now is offering you like $3,000, no questions asked. You take that cash, put it in your pocket. You also get a free plane ticket home to your country. And if you want to, then you can apply to come here legally. And if you're still here now, that's been a year now that's been in place, and 2 million of your pals have taken advantage of that program. You've had a year to do it. If you are still in this country in the year of our Lord, 2026, knowing that we are now enforcing these laws, knowing that you've been living on borrowed time, knowing that you should have left years ago, knowing that you never should have legally been here in the first place. And I know, I recognize it, Bush never enforced these laws. Obama never enforced these laws. Biden rolled out the red carpet and begged us to come in. I get it. You're right. They're gone now. There's a new president. And for the last year, you've got to be a complete ignoramus to not know that these laws are now being enforced. You know you shouldn't be here. And now we're handing you a few $1,000s and a free ticket home? If you are still here in the year of our Lord 2026 and you are apprehended, I don't know what to say to you. But it's on you now, okay? It's on you. It's over. Go home. Take the deal now. Because it ain't going to last. And it's not going to be pretty. And it's not law enforcement's fault for enforcing the law. So that's one of the big victory laps from 2025. Now, what do you want from 2026? What are your resolutions for this president, for this government, for this Congress, or maybe the governor of your state? Let your voice be heard. New Year's resolutions coming up next. 877-381-3811. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
As a consumer, you can carry the success or failure of businesses in the palm of your hand. Their success can depend on your decision to spend money with them or their competitor. Well, my friends at Pure Talk would like to say thank you from the bottom of their hearts for choosing Pure Talk for your wireless needs. Because of you, they've had a record-breaking year. Because of your generosity through their Roundup for Charity program, they've been able to donate over $500,000 to America's Warrior Partnership, who stands on the front lines of helping to prevent veteran suicide. Your patronage has allowed Pure Talk to donate 1,000 hand-sewed Made in America flags to your fellow veterans. And when you choose Pure Talk as your wireless provider, you help Pure Talk support American jobs right here in our country. Like I said, as a consumer, you have the power to make or break companies. And with the money the big wireless guys throw around on advertising, you're inundated with offers everywhere you look. So from everyone in the Pure Talk family, thank you for your trust, and God bless you.
I'm Larry O'Connor, sitting in for Mark Levin, having the time of my life, doing it too, by the way. George is in Boston, Massachusetts. Let's see if we can do this time on line one. Hello, George. Thanks for calling. I'm Larry. Hey, George. George. You know what? You probably hit your mute button while you're sitting on. There you go. Hey, go ahead, George.
Hey, how's it going, Larry? Great show.
Thank you, man.
And we just have to look at it this way. California has been invaded for the last 60 years. New York's been invaded. These states have been flipped, and you don't get no cooperation from law enforcement because the governor and the mayors of these cities don't want ICE to be helped out. So they're basically on their own out there. But I feel that people should not. When the invasion comes in their backyard, they complain. But California's been invaded for the last 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
And now it's time we have to really...
Absolutely, George. Listen, obviously it's time. And that the president made this the centerpiece of his election. He won overwhelmingly, and now it's getting done. I got to tell you, though, and I get it. I understand the purpose of using the term invasion. And for all intents and purposes, this is an invasion of sorts. Here's the problem, though. Is it really an invasion of California when California has invited these people? They have elected people who have welcomed them with open arms. The last governor of California that actually won election fighting back against illegal immigration was Pete Wilson in the 90s. He won the election because he was going nuts about immigration. They said he was racist, but back in the good old days, Pete Wilson is racist, right? But since then, for 30 years, they've had governors who have looked the other way, if not encouraged people to come here illegally. Is it still an invasion?
Well, no longer, because the invaders have now taken power. They're being welcomed in there. We know that.
They've been welcomed.
Like when in New York City, there.
Yeah.
Adams welcomed them in there, and they want this invasion because let's face it, a lot of conservatives have left New York and California. They got to keep that population up too, and for congressional districts and for electoral votes.
Well,
so to me, this is an overthrow of my country if you bring people in here illegally and stuff. But listen, Larry, the 65 Immigration Act has got to go. Race quotas go, and we'll have the hard left going crazy. Because a lot of America, we're now foreigners in our own country, run by third worlders.
So that is your New Year's resolution, I'm guessing. All right, well, let's see if that happens. See, here's the thing, and I appreciate the call, George. Merry New Year to you, and good luck with your Patriots, who are definitely back in the game again. Let me tell you something. This next year, we might not see repeal of the 65 Immigration Act, but there could be two decisions that are made that could just upend everything that you've known and that the left has exploited about immigration. Number one, birthright citizenship. Supreme Court's going to hear it. We'll see what they do. I'm not optimistic, but there's a chance. And number two, frankly, even more importantly, is the census question. Should non-citizens, and most specifically illegal immigrants, should they be counted to determine congressional representation? You take that away, you remove the census question from the equation, Democrats don't win another election as far as the eye can see. Because they've been counting, and listen, I know, because they count on their votes. Yes and no. Sure, there's rampant voter fraud, and absolutely non-citizens are voting, but you don't even need that. All you need is the congressional district, my friends. That's all you need. Right now, based on a warped interpretation of the Constitution, non-citizens and even illegal immigrants are being counted in the census. That's what's determining the congressional districts in any given state. That overwhelmingly benefits Democrats because of the illegal immigrants who are living in overwhelmingly blue states, so they are overrepresented in the House of Representatives. But even more so, that seat in the House of Representatives then translates to an electoral college vote. You change that, and California, Illinois, and New York could lose potentially, I think, between 5 and 10% of their electoral votes and their representation in Congress. And all you got to do to get it done is read the Constitution. More of your resolutions for Trump for 2026 next. It's Larry O'Connor, The Mark Levin Show.
As a consumer, you can carry the success or failure of businesses in the palm of your hand. Their success can depend on your decision to spend money with them or their competitor. Well, my friends at Pure Talk would like to say thank you from the bottom of their hearts for choosing Pure Talk for your wireless needs. Because of you, they've had a record-breaking year. Because of your generosity through their Roundup for Charity program, they've been able to donate over $500,000 to America's Warrior Partnership, who stands on the front lines of helping to prevent veteran suicide. Your patronage has allowed Pure Talk to donate 1,000 hand-sewed Made in America flags to your fellow veterans. And when you choose Pure Talk as your wireless provider, you help Pure Talk support American jobs right here in our country. Like I said, as a consumer, you have the power to make or break companies. And with the money the big wireless guys throw around on advertising, you're inundated with offers everywhere you look. So from everyone in the Pure Talk family, thank you for your trust, and God bless you.
You're listening to Denali, the Great One.
The Great One.
And you can call in now, 877-381-3811.
I'm Larry O'Connor, not the Great One, but I love the Great One, Mark Levin. So I'm sitting in for Mark. Thanks for tuning in. By the way, I'm the morning radio host on WMAL in Washington, D.C. If you're, wanting a change of pace for your morning talk radio, I start at 5 a.m. Eastern. You can find us at WMAL. I'm on the air with my co-hosts, Julie Gunlock and Patrice Onwuka, and we got a pretty good show going there. Been doing it for quite some time. I also do a daily live stream podcast, video show for Town Hall Media. You can catch it on all the platforms that you like to watch your video shows. Just search my name, Larry. In fact, you don't even have to remember the last name. The show's called Larry. Apparently, there aren't a lot of Larrys out there. I'd love to see you in our audience at some point. But while we're doing the Mark Levin show, I'm asking you a question. Do you have any resolutions that you'd like Donald Trump to make? Or maybe it's your resolution for President Trump going into 2026, building off the momentum of an incredible 2025. How about Sherry in Richland, Washington? That's line 3. Sherry, thanks for calling. I'm Larry. Oh, how about Jim in Aiken, South Carolina? That's line 1. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I want to. Here's what I'd like to see all the Republican governors do in light of all these illegals behind steering wheels of big rigs and vehicles. I think they should make a state law, because it is a privilege, not a federal right, that all licenses will no longer be recognized in the states that are involved in sanctuary cities, involving giving ICE a difficult time of opposition, i.e. California, Colorado, just to name 2 of the states. Mm-hmm. And the only exemptions that should be made should be active military or retired, those who have served our nation, or active duty military, or anyone that's involved as a first responder. Like if I was from California and I was driving in my state, South Carolina, and I got stopped, my car gets impounded. Best case scenario, I lose my car, and I get a hefty fine, even if I'm a lawful American citizen. and
all right.
This will put the pressure on the states, because, look, it's out of control.
I understand.
And I'm tired of seeing people being killed, and drastic problems require drastic solutions.
I like your creative thinking. Just so I can clear this up, did you say commercial driver's license or all driver's license?
All driver's licenses, because even though it's commercial drivers calling the big stories that we see in the news, I drive not commercial, but I drive a small vehicle for a living, and I see a lot of people that, well, they appear to be not from this country, I'll just say, and they appear to not be abiding by traffic laws, like they're ignorant on traffic laws. So the bottom line is, we got to do something about non-citizens.
We do have to do something about non-citizens, and I actually think the federal government's doing a pretty good job with it so far. And listen, I appreciate the call, and I appreciate the outside-the-box thinking. Let me say a few things about it, though. First of all, I don't know what that person doesn't appear to be from our country means, because you can't tell someone's immigration status based on how they're dressed or how they look or even how they speak. All right. And by the way, if we're judging people on how they drive, trust me, there's some people who look like they go all the way back to the Mayflower, and they're pretty lousy drivers. All right. So let's just dispense with that for a quick second. Secondly, I think you might have some constitutional problems in terms of the interstate commerce law and respecting other states' laws over California driver's license. Because if you did that, imagine if the left started doing that when they're in charge. What if Democrat states started not accepting the driver's license from people in red states because we have more robust Second Amendment respect than a blue state? Wow, we don't. You're driving in our state with an Oklahoma driver's license. We pull you over, your car's going to be impounded. For all I know, you've got an AR-15 in the trunk of your car. We don't allow that here in Minnesota. You see what we're doing here? Again, I enjoy the spirit of what you're saying, but we got to do this the right way, and we got to do it at the federal level, and we got to do, well, pretty much what this president is doing. I appreciate the call. Also, not for nothing, but my children are half Asian descent. I would hate for somebody to see their driving and say, well, clearly they're from another country. Listen, they act like they're from another planet sometimes, but not because of their racial or ethnic makeup. All right, how about Michael? Line 5 brings us Michael in Tampa, Florida. Michael, thanks for calling. You're next up. I'm Larry O'Connor.
Thank you.
Do you have a resolution? Michael, let's go. You're on.
Yes.
Right there in his.
Oh, okay.
You got to turn your radio down, brother.
Are you there?
Yeah, let's go.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's all right.
Hey, long time listener, big fan, first time caller.
Excellent. Welcome aboard.
Yeah, I had a question for you, Mark.
I'm not Mark. I'm Larry. I'm filling in for Mark.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Larry.
That's all right. Don't be sorry.
Long. I just got home from work.
Yeah, but if it's a question for Mark, I'm not going to be able to help you much.
Okay, well, Larry, I got a question for you.
All right.
Replacement. Do you think that Netanyahu will ever be brought up on war crime charges for the genocide and ethnic cleansing of Palestine?
Well, first of all, I'll reject the premise because there has not been any genocide or ethnic cleansing of Palestine, such as it is. Let me ask you a question. If you think that Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal and he wants to murder every Arab within shouting distance of the Knesset or Jerusalem or anywhere within the Israeli borders, can I ask you something? How come all of the Arabs and Palestinians and people who are non-Jews and Muslims and Christians seem to be just fine living within the borders of Israel? Wouldn't he be killing them? Wouldn't he be ethnically cleansing Israel instead of worrying about Gaza? Have you thought about that?
No.
No, answer the question. Answer the question. You said Netanyahu is guilty of war crimes and ethnic cleansing. Why would he wait until October 8th to ethnically cleanse Gaza when he could have started murdering every Arab in the streets of Tel Aviv, where they work and live and vote and have more freedoms than in any other Arab country in the Middle East? If he wanted to ethnically cleanse, why did he wait until October 8th and just focus on Gaza? Can you answer that?
Was a planned fraud.
Oh, really?
And you know that, and I know that.
Oh, do I? Do I know that? Listen, buddy, it sounds like you started celebrating the new year a little early, so I'm going to let you get back to your whatever it is you're drinking, and I appreciate it. I'm hoping that you're intoxicated. I am hoping that you are mentally disabled because of the alcohol you've been consuming, because I don't want to live in a world where somebody can be sane and rational and sober and think the way that you do. Outrageous. Yeah, I just never understood it. And listen, I don't want to wade into Mark's fights because Mark's fine with fighting his fights himself, and I certainly don't want to waste your time fighting with other talk show hosts or podcasters. That's a waste. I hate doing that, and I don't do it. But on the issue at hand, that Netanyahu is a war criminal, it's amazing. He's a war criminal, and he's guilty of ethnically cleansing Gaza. And it all started on October 8th. Why? Why did it start on October 8th? Why didn't he do it before? Why didn't he do it within his borders? He didn't have to launch any kind of offensive into Gaza. He's got more Palestinians living in the state of Israel that he lets work and lets have freedom of speech and freedom of religion and vote. They're allowed to have bank accounts. They're allowed to do everything that a Jew can't do in Gaza or the West Bank. If he was a racist, filthy, anti-Muslim monster who just wants to kill everyone that isn't a Jew, why doesn't he kill them in Israel? Why doesn't he purge Israel of all those people? You know, the way Jews and Christians have been purged from the Arab nations right next door? Yeah, they're really good at it. You try to find yourself a Christian in some of those countries that used to have a huge population of Christians. They're not there anymore. So why hasn't Netanyahu done that in Israel? And when everyone's, he's starting in Gaza and he started on the 8th. Really, let me ask you something. What happened on the 7th? Do you remember what happened on the 7th? What would we have done to a neighboring country that slaughtered our innocents going to a concert? What would America have done? And what would we have thought of some country on the other side of the planet lecturing us for retaliating against the monsters who murdered our citizens? I don't know how Mark puts up with it sometimes. All right. How about David in Morristown, New Jersey on line 6? Hey, David, thanks for calling. It's a tough act to follow.
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Happy New Year, everybody. I would hope that President Trump will fire Bondi. I want to give an example of how, as Attorney General of Florida, her chief of staff kept George Zimmerman in jail until trial. Now, that was primarily because Eric Holder put pressure on Bondi. If the old expression that you can keep or you can indict a ham sandwich, I don't expect anybody in the Russiagate, the lady from Hawaii, she was the one that was on the no-fly list, and she herself has said all this information and evidence, I would expect some indictments. I have no illusions whatsoever about anybody getting convicted, but for all the scandals and then to mess up the Comey perp walk, Bondi is either incompetent or colluding. I can't figure a third option here. And it's nothing personal. If she doesn't like the job, she can quit. I'm of the opinion that if there aren't any indictments next year, there aren't going to be any indictments at all. And that's a shame because a lot of innocent people were dragged through the mud. Tulsi Gabbard, that was her name. Remember when she was on the no-fly list?
Yeah.
Enough is enough. Where are the indictments? Thank you.
You know what, brother? I think you speak for tens of millions. And listen, I give this administration and the members of the administration the benefit of the doubt whenever possible. But I am surprised myself that we haven't seen a little bit more action in certain areas. And one wonders exactly what the holdup is. And at some point, one doesn't have to wonder anymore. 877-381-3811. We are making New Year's resolutions for the Trump administration going into next year. And let's bring in Omar in Tyler, Texas, here on line 4. Tyler, Texas. Omar, you are next up. I'm Larry O'Connor, in for Mark Levin.
Yes, sir.
What do you think?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to mention about the young journalist that you're talking about.
Oh, yeah, Nick Shirley.
Yes, sir. And I want to applaud you for reporting on it and all that you guys do on the conservative side. But, you know, as Mark would probably agree that the way he puts it, a lot of times the left is doing another stupid, dumb thing by attacking this guy. And, of course, they do cause risk. But at the same time, think about it. They're giving him $1 million advertising. Let's maybe all the conservative side of the house just really get behind this guy and promote him and let him take advantage of all of this positive stuff because they're just putting him on a platform to get more well known. And if he was under, like under your wing or, the other conservative talk shows, if y'all guys took him under your wing, he's your next generation.
I agree. Listen, I hope you're right. You're right, and he is getting a name for himself, and that's a good thing. It really is, and he seems to be, for a 23-year-old, handling it pretty well. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Listen, I was there working with Andrew Breitbart when James O'Keefe came out of nowhere with his Acorn expose. And for those of you who know James O'Keefe and everything that he's done since then, that was 2009. September of 2009, first week of September, when we launched a brand new website called Big Government. And the very first story that we had was the Acorn expose. If you know James O'Keefe, but you don't know the Acorn story, well, you don't know the origins of James. Go and search it out. And you're right. It's true. It is that all of the criticism of this guy, Nick Shirley, just like the criticism of James O'Keefe, just like the criticism of Andrew Breitbart when he was in his prime, it all gets their name out there, and it does bring clicks, and it brings attention, and it brings a lot of publicity. But it's not easy. I promise you. These are human beings. And I promise you, from being in the room with Andrew as it was all coming down, it's hell. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
As a consumer, you can carry the success or failure of businesses in the palm of your hand. Their success can depend on your decision to spend money with them or their competitor. Well, my friends at Pure Talk would like to say thank you from the bottom of their hearts for choosing Pure Talk for your wireless needs. Because of you, they've had a record-breaking year. Because of your generosity through their Roundup for Charity program, they've been able to donate over $500,000 to America's Warrior Partnership, who stands on the front lines of helping to prevent veteran suicide. Your patronage has allowed Pure Talk to donate 1,000 hand-sewn Made in America flags to your fellow veterans. And when you choose Pure Talk as your wireless provider, you help Pure Talk support American jobs right here in our country. Like I said, as a consumer, you have the power to make or break companies. And with the money the big wireless guys throw around on advertising, you're inundated with offers everywhere you look. So from everyone in the Pure Talk family, thank you for your trust, and God bless you.
Larry O'Connor sitting in for the great one, Mark Levin, tonight. This final, I think it's our final live show of the 2025 season. We'll be launching into the new year. Can't wait for it. Can't wait to get Mark back. But we're taking your New Year's resolutions right now. We got Chris in Marshall, Virginia. Chris, thanks for calling in. My name's Larry O'Connor.
Yes, indeed. We've spoken a myriad times before, sir. It's nice. It's an honor to speak to you.
Oh, great. Well, it's good to talk with you again, then.
I'm the guy of the front line of the heartland, Marshall, Virginia.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I'm so disheartened, man. I mean,
why?
You don't know how much this pains me, because I have been a huge, avid Trump supporter and advocate since the Golden Escalator. I've held countless events at my own residence and car parades and all kinds of stuff. And there have been 3 rapid-fire instances that have just really, really disappointed me about President Donald J. Trump, and I am still extremely conservative and a huge MAGA enthusiast.
All right, tell me what your concern is.
The MAGA mover, I hope the MAGA movement survives this administration. The first one was before Rob Reiner's blood was dried. He posted that thing.
Yeah.
That Truth Social. That was so unnecessary. I saw an edited version of that where they crossed out all of the unnecessary hyperbole.
Yep.
And he would have knocked that out of the ballpark, man.
Yeah. Or just say nothing. Or just say nothing. But I agree with you.
Or just say nothing. Exactly. That wasn't an unforced error. He went onto the field in a game he wasn't even playing. And everybody says, "Oh, but Rob was so vicious, so vicious." Show me any elected office Rob Reiner held, and show me when Rob Reiner ever was in the vicinity of a nuclear football, man.
No, I get it. I know. All right, Chris, I agree with you. We only got a minute, so what's your other?
The other things are when the Kennedy Center, renaming that was a big mistake.
Nah.
I think that was just antagonistic. And there was a third, and I just can't. I'm drawing a blank.
That's all right. I shrink under pressure sometimes, too. Listen, you're not wrong. Thankfully, none of those things really have anything to do with the president doing his job heading our executive branch of government. I'd prefer he didn't do it either, but you got to keep your eye on the bigger prize. Larry O'Connor in for Mark Levin.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
My name's Larry O'Connor, and I'm sitting in for the great one, Mark Levin, today on this 30th day of December, and it's an honor to be here. I love sitting in for Mark this week after Christmas. He's been kind enough and generous enough to invite me to sort of close out the year a few years in a row here now, and it's always fun. And I always feel like there's really interesting stuff that goes on in this final week between Christmas and New Year. I obviously have been lucky enough to sit in for Mark all year long at various times when he's on vacation or for whatever reasons, under the weather, or he's got, well, the other day in December, he had a bigger name on the other line. He was invited to the Hanukkah celebration at the White House, and what a scene it was. So always an honor. I never take it for granted, and I always feel so privileged to be able to just for a little while, share the space that the Great One has created out of nothing. I talked about how great Mark was last night, spent a little time on it, and I forgot to mention, there was a time when 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Time was sort of no man's land in talk radio. You want to be morning drive, you want to be afternoon drive, or if you're Rush Limbaugh, you can be on anytime you want, even noon to 3, when back in the old days no one cared to listen to the radio. 6 to 9 in the evening, that's the slot they gave Mark Levin, and he created an empire with it. Dominant. Not just 1 or 2 years, for decades, continues to be. That doesn't happen by accident. So always an honor to be sitting here. My usual gig is to do the morning show, Morning Drive, as I just mentioned, on WMAL in Washington, D.C. You can hear it anywhere in the country, of course, because of the Internet. And I'd love for you to join us sometime on that program and take a listen to how we get people going first thing in the morning. And then I also do a daily noontime video streaming podcast for Town Hall Media. I've been working for Town Hall Media on and off for the last decade. Great group of people, great colleagues there. And for the last 2 years, we've been doing a live show at noon every day, focusing on the top few stories that are happening in the world around us. I hope you check that out as well. It's live, but you can also catch the podcast wherever you catch your podcasts. The show's called Larry. It's that easy to remember. And while I've got you, I do want to say a quick word for Victor Davis Hanson. If you don't know, the great Victor Davis Hanson, a brilliant man and a scholar, literally a scholar, announced abruptly on his podcast that he does through Daily Signal Heritage Foundation that he was going to have to undergo an emergency surgical procedure. He hasn't really disclosed specifically what the details are behind this procedure, but it seems to be serious. He described it as a major medical operation. That occurred yesterday, and if you have it in you, say a prayer for Victor Davis Hanson. Hopefully he sees through it. We need his voice desperately. He's one of the good ones. You can't find anybody to say anything bad about Victor Davis Hanson. It's just impossible. This was what he said on his podcast as he signed off Monday. I'm having a major operation, and I've been presented with a serious problem, but I'm going to do all I can to solve it, and that's all I can do, and trust in the power of prayer and faith and in a wonderful surgeon. And so please join all of us in prayer. By the way, Mark commented on this story on X. Although if he's on vacation, Julie is he's going to have hell to pay if he's spending too much time on social media and working and getting worked up. He's supposed to be resting. Mark, we need you at full strength come Monday. Mark said of Victor Davis Hanson, Victor is one of the wisest, smartest, kindest, most decent people I've known. I very much look up to him. Think about that for a minute. Think about having Mark Levin say that he looks up to you. He's also a fighter. May God be with him today as he goes through this very serious surgery. And let's all please pray for his well-being. Amen to that. I wish I had more information for you. Victor Davis Hanson said on his podcast, I finally ended up going to the best medical center that I know, Stanford Med, and the people there have been absolutely wonderful. It'll work out one way or the other. Well, that's sort of the matter-of-fact, straightforward, no-nonsense commentary you expect from VDH. He, of course, is a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, which is located in Stanford. He's also a distinguished fellow in history at Hillsdale College in Michigan, and he's been part of the Daily Signal all this year as he took his very popular podcast to that platform. He's still doing his podcast, by the way. His co-host, his guest host, will be in for him. And, guest hosts are good. Give them a chance. He went on to say, I don't want to talk about my own problems, but I've had people call and say, you don't look well, you're hoarse, or you're coughing. He says it's been a 9-month odyssey because the problem I had for a non-smoker and non-drinker was a rare type and very hard to diagnose. So it's no one's fault other than my own, perhaps, for not realizing why I was not getting well. He recently had a biopsy, and he decided to proceed with the operation that's going to interrupt his work, but hopefully not for long, he said. He said, I'll be fine. At least I'll do my best for everybody. I think I have an obligation to all our readers and listeners from whom I get wonderful letters expressing support and good wishes. Our listeners and viewers are extraordinarily kind people. And that's all we know. Say a prayer for Victor Davis Hanson. I've had the opportunity to meet him and interview him many, 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 many times. He's always brilliant. He always has keen observations. And he's one of the handful of principled conservative commentators who pretty early on understood Donald Trump and understood what Donald Trump meant to the nation and to the conservative movement and the newfound populist strain within that movement. And he was able to see it, understand it, comment on it, when appropriate, criticize it. But never once did he insult voters, conservatives, Americans who saw in Donald Trump a voice that had been ignored by most of the mainstream conservative commentariat. Never once did Victor Davis Hanson, even though he is an intellectual's intellectual and a historian and a brilliant observer of American politics, never once did he fall into the trap of lecturing you about how you should think and what you should believe and, God forbid, who you should vote for. The Bill Kristols of the world and the Jonah Goldbergs and the David Frenches and the Steve Hayeses and on and on and on. They always make that mistake. They always think that their job is to tell you how to think, tell you what to think, tell you how to behave, and tell you who to vote for. I approach this job very differently, and Victor Davis Hanson is one of my idols in that regard. Oftentimes, when I'm vexed because I know what I believe, I know where my principles are, I know what I think the right thing is, but oftentimes I feel like I'm going against the tide. I'm sure you feel that way too. Well, before I shoot my mouth off, before I just go with the gut when I'm not sure, before I start, God forbid, lecture my audience to tell you why you're wrong, I hit the pause button and I contemplate what would Victor Davis Hanson do. And thankfully, he's usually already done it. I can see a column of his, or I can check out the latest podcast, and he's had something wise to say about it. And oftentimes, I'm on the right side of it, and I just need to hone the way I communicate my ideas. And sometimes, Victor Davis Hanson, and I believe this is the highest compliment you could give somebody in our business, sometimes Victor Davis Hanson makes me think a second time about what I was sure I knew. He really is one of the best we have. And I sure hope Victor Davis Hanson is in your prayers. And prayers to everybody over at Daily Signal. Rob Bluey, the guy who runs Daily Signal, he's a great guy. And Jack Fowler, Victor's co-host, who will continue the podcast while Victor Davis Hanson recovers. We need ourselves some VDH. And honestly, the great thing about his podcast is that many of them are evergreen. They're not reliant on today's headlines. You can go back and grab some of the old episodes if you're missing him while he recovers, and you'll be just as edified and just as informed. Here I go breaking those rules again. See, I've been told that when you're a radio host, you're not supposed to praise all the other guys. You're certainly not supposed to let on that you listen to other people. And God forbid you actually point your audience to another platform. You're not supposed to do that, I'm always told. But let's get real. We live in an environment where we all are doing our best to get our audience and build our audience. And frankly, as far as I'm concerned, the more people who listen to Victor Davis Hanson, well, that means there are more people who are energized and excited and informed about the conservative principles, values, and ideas that we embrace in this country. And that's good. There's no downside there. And, by the way, if you enjoy what he does, well, then you probably enjoy the Mark Levin show. And that builds Mark's audience. And, by the way, you might like my show. And that builds my audience. always makes me crazy, people in the radio business or in the podcast business or the television business who think that there's this limited audience and the pie is only a certain size and it's got to be divided up, and I want my biggest piece of that pie. And I get it. We live in a free market and we're competitive and we want to be the best and we want to have the biggest audience and all that stuff. But I got to tell you, we have seen an explosion in conservative, right of center, patriotic, live stream shows, podcasts, radio shows. That's a good thing. You know, when they start taking shows off the air, when they start shutting down radio stations, when they start shutting down podcasting platforms, that's when we've got an issue. As far as I'm concerned, the more the merrier. And if the Daily Signal at Heritage Foundation can build their podcast audience, well, that means it's going to help build this show's podcast audience at Cumulus Media and Westwood One. And I told you I work at Town Hall Media. Well, it's going to help our podcast network at Town Hall Media. Because, believe it or not, you're smart enough to be able to find the shows that you like, and you're going to go find them. And if you haven't already subscribed to Victor Davis Hansen's podcast, well, maybe today's a good day to do it. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
It's Larry O'Connor sitting in for the great one, Mark Levin. I got some other stories for you, including some new documents revealed about what we knew about the transgender mass murderer in Tennessee who shot up that Christian school. We're going to get to that coming up in just a bit. But some of your calls look interesting, including line 5. We're going to line 5 next on the incredible WABC. Tony in Clifton. Hey, Tony, thanks for calling in. I'm Larry O'Connor.
Larry, what a great show. You really summarized so nicely for us the illegal issue and the ties to Congress. And President Trump, you know, and the congressional districts and how this will all help in future voting if everything gets legalized properly with the voting. Yeah. But President Trump did such a great job. And he has, I give him like a 500% for doing his job, 500% plus at least 3 or 4 other presidents that haven't taken care of things.
Yeah.
But my wish, Larry, would be that for all those who had anything to do with these 20 million plus illegals coming into our country, for those in Congress, I look at Congress because it's really very pivotal. For those in Congress who had anything to do with the anti-Semitism, the invasion crimes, crimes against the federal workers, I would like to see them get treated and convicted and acknowledged for their crimes and get them the heck out of Congress. That's my wish. Speaking of what a great guy. I love Bibi Netanyahu. Nothing needs to be done with him. It's all those in Congress. And I'll leave you with that thought, Larry. You do a great job. Thank you so much.
God bless you, dear. That's very kind of you. Have a happy New Year. And that's very kind. Listen, if anybody has some wishes for the new year about making changes in Congress, good news. It's an election year. And I know a lot of these people seem like they're just stuck in incumbency and you can never get rid of them. But, you know, stranger things have happened. I've lived to see a Speaker of the House lose his reelection bid. Tom Foley. I've seen the Majority Leader, Eric Cantor, lose his primary reelection bid back in 2010. So stranger things have happened. Oh, excuse me. That was 2014, I believe it was. Stranger things have happened. And also, as Tony was just saying, I just went on a bit about what could be done here if we get a decision that stops the census from apportioning congressional districts based on non-citizens and illegal immigrants that happen to live in that district. It's a outrageous, non-constitutional, unconstitutional decision that was made years ago, and that can be challenged and it should be overturned. But also, let's not forget there's 2 other things that's going to happen that is going to affect this midterm election coming up. Listen, if everything is locked in stone right now and we have the exact same congressional election we just had in 2024, the Democrats will probably win. I mean, Republicans only have a 4-seat majority, and more often than not, the out party is always going to do better from the party that just won the White House. That's just cyclically how things go. It's very rare that they don't gain some seats. But here's the thing. We're not having a locked-in election like we did in 2024. Anyone who's trying to predict to you what's going to happen in the 2026 midterm elections, they're either ignorant or they're lying to you. Nobody knows what's going to happen in these elections because nobody knows what the election is even going to be yet. There are 435 elections taking place next November, 11 months from now. 10 months, really. 435 separate elections, and the congressional lines on those districts aren't even drawn completely yet. In a moment, I'll tell you two major things that's about to happen that will finally bring better into focus what this midterm's going to look like. And don't you count Republicans out yet. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin, America's tyranny hunter. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
I'm Larry O'Connor. I'm filling in for Mark Levin tonight. And earlier we had a caller from California. I'm asking you what you want want Donald Trump's resolutions to be. What do you want him to focus on? What do you think he should accomplish in 2026? We had a caller, very nice fellow, a good guy, calling from Southern California. He said he's sick and tired of Gavin Newsom and California and the illegals and the deterioration of the infrastructure and all the rampant voter fraud and on and on and on and on. And he said, and Trump's got to do something about it. And I said, listen, explain to the rest of the country why we should care about what's going on in California and how it's deteriorating when the voters of California, time after time after time after time, keep voting for this. They know exactly who they're voting for. This is what they want. Why should Trump step in? And so we've got on line two, Alvin from Santa Ana, California, Orange County. B1 Bob, my old congressman when I lived near Santa Ana back in the day. He used to call Orange County where good Republicans go to die. So Alvin in Santa Ana, thanks for calling. I weep for the people of California, but it's not going to get fixed until Californians fix it themselves.
Yes, but I heard you say that, and I was. Is this Larry?
Yeah, go ahead, Alvin.
Okay, so I'm 62 years old. I voted Republican from the first time I voted at 18. Lived in California my whole life, with the exception of being in the Marine Corps for 3 years.
Thank you
for
that, sir.
It's not my fault it's the fault of Gavin Newsom, who has gerrymandered this state and also who has allowed all these illegal immigrants in who vote Democrat. I know so many Republicans who vote Republican all the time.
Yeah, I know.
And believe me, if I could do something to change that, I would. But
I know. But you're outnumbered. I know you're there, and I know you're doing the right thing. Listen, I was a Republican in Southern California for decades. All right, I know. And I voted for Duke Majan was a great governor. Wilson was a great governor. Schwarzenegger was a disaster, but he was still better than Gray Davis. All right, and I was a radio host on KABC for several years during Gavin Newsom's first term. You know, in his first term, he said he was going to give free health care to illegal immigrants. And the voters voted for him anyway. He didn't gerrymander the governor's race, Alvin. There's no gerrymandering on a statewide race. You need to convince the rest of the people in this country why statewide Californians keep doubling down on this nonsense.
All the counties, all the districts are blue.
Well, not all of them, actually. There's plenty of red counties in the Inland Empire, in the Central Valley, in the Sierras. I mean, really, you're just talking about the Bay Area and L.A. County. But that's enough. That's where all the people are.
So all I'm saying is that if it was up to me,
I know
it would be done yesterday.
I know, Alvin.
So I kind of took a little issue when you said
I know
the voters have to change because
I mean the majority of the voters, not individual voters. Alvin, that's why I saw that you wanted to express that, so I wanted to get you on the air so you could have your say. I hope you have a Happy New Year. Tell Orange County I said hi. I miss it. I still have a kid down at UC San Diego, and I have a kid living in Whittier. But my other 2 kids are out elsewhere now. One of them with the military in the United States Navy. She is a submariner. And my other daughter's getting her graduate degree back east. How about that? But she was at UCLA. So, listen, my roots are in Southern California. I love Southern California. It breaks my heart that California's gone that way. But I also know that the patient needs to bring something to the table here to help the problem. Although, to that end, I do want to say something, because I've been thinking about this quite a bit. What we saw Donald Trump do to fix the border so quickly was such an astounding and remarkable achievement. To secure the border within, 2 months of being sworn in. And ladies and gentlemen, since April, we have not had a single illegal crossing of our southern border. Did you ever think that would occur? You've been told by all the experts and the professionals and the elected officials and that it couldn't happen. Couldn't be done. I always loved the people who said, well, we can't really build a wall, but we could do something utilizing modern technology and drones and surveillance and electronic wall. And it was like, okay, or you could build a wall. And the border's been locked down. And as President Trump likes to say, you didn't need new laws, you just needed a new president. Well, I've been looking at the border issue. I've been looking at illegal immigration. I've been looking at the entire problem and what the left and sadly the organized establishment Republicans who either looked the other way or were happy to see cheap labor able to be exploited crossing our border into this country for their own greedy purposes. I've seen how this entire thing has manifested and worked itself out. And I see another issue plaguing our country right now that, in my opinion, really parallels this border crisis. And just like border security, we don't need new laws to fix this problem. We just need, maybe a new president, but more likely we need new governors. And that's what's euphemistically referred to now as the homeless crisis. And by the way, I say euphemistically because, now people like Gavin Newsom or J.B. Pritzker or Kathy Hochul in New York, Zohran Mamdani, they won't even refer to the homeless as homeless. They'll call them the unhoused. Our unhoused brothers and sisters, our unhoused neighbors, they prey on your goodwill. They prey on your charity. They prey on your emotions. And they try to tell you that you're one paycheck away from being unhoused, that there but for the grace of God go you. And I understand Christian charity. I'm Christian, I'm Catholic, and I recognize that we have a responsibility and a duty to our fellow man, no matter what their circumstances. I recognize that. That's why I'm so motivated by this issue, because the fact of the matter is our unhoused neighbors are not benefiting from woke, left-wing, liberal, Marxist policies that allow them to stay on our city sidewalks or in our city parks, that allow them to wallow in their mental illness or their addiction or their criminal behavior. That's not compassion. That's enabling. I am compassionate for those people out of the good of my Christian heart. I want to help them. And by helping them, I want to enforce the laws that our society has set up to keep them from doing the thing that they're doing to destroy our communities and to destroy themselves. And it's so similar to the illegal immigration problem because the left did the same thing there. See, we used to have illegal aliens in this country, and they say, oh, well, that's mean. You shouldn't call them that. They're immigrants. Oh, okay, they're illegal immigrants. No, that's mean, too. They're just undocumented immigrants. Or, for that matter, they love calling them undocumented workers, which, by the way, it's illegal to work in this country without documentation. But that's okay. They go ahead and call them that anyway because they're admitting that they're criminals. But they change the name of the problem every 10 years because they're trying to destigmatize the crime that's being committed. That's why now you hear, oh, they're just unhoused Americans, unhoused neighbors, unhoused Californians. Before that, the euphemism was homeless. That was the feel-good, touchy-feely, let's not judge lest we be judged ourselves there, but for the grace of God kind of euphemistic name that we called these people. You know what we called them before homeless? We called them vagrants, criminal vagrants. You know, watch a movie back in black and white days of the 30s and 40s, they were called hobos. Or maybe uncharitably, they were referred to as bums. But do you know why we called them those names? Because there should be a negative stigma. People should be ashamed to live on the street. But this whole idea, we don't want to put a stigma on people who are living on the street. Why not? They should be stigmatized. They should be ashamed of themselves. They're living on the sidewalks of our city. They're living in the parks where we're supposed to be bringing our children. They're filthy. They smell. They urinate and defecate in public, sometimes even worse. They commit crimes in public. We're not supposed to stigmatize people who commit crimes. But just like the border problem, when you strip away the euphemisms, this problem can be solved, and it can be solved quickly. Just like the border. And just like the border, you do not need new laws. You have to have the leadership and the focus to enforce the laws that are already on the books. You go out and check whatever city you're living in. If you have a problem with the unhoused or with the homeless, you go ahead and check to see if you have any criminal vagrancy laws on the books. Almost every jurisdiction in this country has them. Criminal vagrancy. It's exactly what it sounds like. It is a criminal act to be a vagrant in public spaces, because that's not what public spaces are for. It is a public health hazard. It is also a safety hazard, because people who live in tent cities or cardboard box cities or whatever else filth that they're living in, they become not only infested with vermin and communicable diseases spread by rats and mice and lice and other horrible unsanitary creatures that, again, we learned these lessons literally in the Middle Ages about what is unhealthy for a society when it comes to people living on the streets. There's nothing new here. We know that it's bad for our society. It's also bad for the people who are living in that squalor. But these tent cities, box cities, whatever you want to call them, homeless encampments, they like to call them now, as if they're in the military. They're also infested with criminals. They're infested with drug dealers and gang members and prostitutes and pimps, child traffickers. We know that that activity is going on, and yet out of compassion, our mayors and our governors look the other way or pass laws that empower and enable this behavior. And again, the law is on the books right now. Criminal vagrancy, enforce it. And there is nothing new here. Have you ever wondered why you can go to other cities or other states and they don't have the same problem that you see in the cities and states that do have this problem? What's the difference? The economy is the same. Unemployment is the same. What is the difference? The difference is the will to enforce the law and raise standards up in your community to say, no, we will not tolerate this. It is wrong. It is not only wrong for the law-abiding taxpayers who deserve to have clean sidewalks, clean streets, and clean parks where they can take their children without stepping over hypodermic needles or an unconscious, drugged-out individual. You shouldn't have to deal with that. And when I say there's nothing new, I literally mean nothing new, because you ever heard of New York City? You know, before they elected communists to be their mayor, back in the early 90s, they elected a guy named Rudolph Giuliani, a great man and a great mayor. He inherited Ed Koch and David Dinkins' disaster in Times Square. You talk about the unhoused. You talk about drug dealers. You talk about prostitutions. You talk about crime. It was disgusting. And Rudy Giuliani had a simple message. We're going to enforce the law. And we will not tolerate people living on the streets. Here's what's going to happen. If you are encountered on the street by a police officer and you are breaking the law against vagrancy, you have three options. You go to jail. And if you don't want to go to jail, then we're going to look at what your situation is. Do you have mental health issues? We're going to put you in a facility to get treated for mental health issues. But I love the people who say, well, you can't remove these people from the streets because they're schizophrenic. Those are the last people we want on the streets for our safety and for theirs. All right, you have mental health issues, you're going to get treated. Boom, done. All right, you're an addict, drug addict, alcohol addict. All right, you're getting cleaned up. We're taking you off the street. You're going to this faith-based mission run by a church, but in cooperation with the government. They're going to clean you up in every possible way. They're going to give you a set of clothes. They're going to teach you how to do a job interview. You're going to get sober, and you're going to go get a job, and you're going to get back on your feet. And thirdly, if you're really on the streets because you're destitute and you can't afford it, okay, and there's nothing wrong with you, you don't have a health problem, you don't have an addiction problem, okay, we're going to get you a roof over your head. We'll spend the money for that and for those shelters, but it's not permanent. You got to get out there, and you've got to get your life together. Period. That's how you do it. And it worked. New York was transformed within 3 years. This is the next border crisis that Trump and leaders can fix. They just got to focus on it, enforce the laws, and make America great again. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's the Mark Levin Show.
Mark Levin.
Hey, it's Larry O'Connor. I've been sitting in for Mark Levin here as we wind up 2025. I hope I have the opportunity to sit in this chair and get behind this microphone in 2026, but I don't count my chickens. So until we speak again, it's been great. And if you like what you hear, like I said, I've got a podcast. You can get the audio version of it or watch the video. I do it every day live at noon for Town Hall Media. And the podcast is available within, half an hour of the show going up. And also, my morning radio show is also available on podcast, or you can listen to it live every morning, Monday through Friday at 5 a.m. We do 4 hours of morning radio every single day, live from your nation's capital, and we have a blast. It's myself and my co-host Julie Gunlock and Patrice Onwuka, both from Independent Women's Forum here in the nation's capital, representing women, who don't adhere to the Nancy Pelosi way of doing things. Let's go to Sherry on line 3. Sherry, Richland, Washington. Hey, Sherry, thanks for calling in. I'm Larry O'Connor.
Thank you for everything you do.
Oh, I appreciate that. I love it.
We were only in Washington because instead of Montana, because my husband came down with Parkinson's from the COVID shot.
Oh, no. I'm so sorry, dear.
Yeah, our other daughter and his sister talked him into it. So anyway, what I want to talk about is what are we going to do about the Somalias? Oh, my gosh. Trump has got to be aware of it.
Yeah. Well, listen, and I appreciate the call, Sherry. I can tell you that the FBI is sending more investigators. The DOJ is motivating their U.S. attorney in that area. These are all federal crimes, and they got to ramp up. The problem is they don't have enough U.S. attorneys right now. They're hiring. They've got to go after these people, and they've got to prosecute them because they can't rely on Keith Ellison, the Democrat corrupt attorney general in that state, and they certainly can't rely on Tim Walz. This has got to be prosecuted at the federal level, and that's what the attorney general and the president is saying they're doing. And that's the best I got for you. God bless y'all. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being part of what we do here. Thanks for supporting Mark Levin. Make sure you're here every day next year. It's going to be vital. I'm Larry O'Connor.